So for the next stage of those 5 journal pages that we have been creating, we're going to need just a few simple items. So some white tissue paper, some images, maybe from magazines, maybe some even just textures, writing. You can use numbers, you can use the words, you can just use single letters out of those words to create a word that you want for your journaling. You can use your own writing, you can cut, once again, you can cut the words out of your magazines, you can cut them out of old books. I do have over on my site some word art if you'd like to use it, so you can print it with either a white background or a textured background. Also, going along with the theme of the pictures, you could also use things like die cuts. And then we'll also need a fairly large stamp. This is about, I don't know, about 4 inches square. It's one that I carved myself in like a mandala. Just fairly large so that we can use either the full stamp as is, or a half off the edge of the page, or a quarter, just to give it a different look on each spread. And of course you'll need a stamp pad. Ideally we would be using a waterproof ink. Mine has dried off at the moment, so I'm just going to have to be very careful with this. This one's not waterproof, so I'll just have to be very... Oh, no, it doesn't say it's water-based, so it's not water resistant, so I'll just have to be very careful with that one. So let's get started. So this one here, which has a fair bit of texturing, I would probably like to use like a collage type thing. So we're sticking down something rather than drawing on. I mean, we definitely can draw on the page, but because of those lumps and bumps, it does make it a little bit more difficult. So usually adhering like a collage type item on there would be a little easier to do. Especially not stamping either, because you'll find that it won't, it'll hit and miss where the high points are and the low points. You won't get a great imprint, which could be nice too, like a sort of distressed look. But for this page, I'm going to be using simply collage. I'm thinking that this little set of die cuts are going to go really nicely with this background colour. So I'm going to use those. And it's like a little kit which has quite a few items on it, and it's going to look, be quite an easy page to do, and then put a little bit of journaling on with it as well. So let's play with some of these placements. Just a little bit of journaling up there. And I'm going to put a little bit of a very simple border just around the edge, just to finish that off. Now, just to make everything sort of pop off the page a little bit, I'm going to go around the very outside just to define the graphics. So there we have it. Now, if you didn't have die cuts like this, you could have cut pictures out of magazines. You could, for the writing, you could have made a simple square, or cut a circle out of scrapbooking paper or different coloured paper, or just simply drawn a circle drawn a square, put a little decoration around it. You can cut words out of magazines, pop them in there. Just a really simple, easy page to do. So now I'm just going to stamp this image onto some tissue paper. Now you can get archival tissue paper from the art store, but really I don't think my kids are going to keep my journals. There's so many of them and I don't have that worry about how long they're going to last. So I'd rather just go for the cheap dollar store tissue paper. That's all I need. So let me ink up the stamp. And I'll just keep going until I don't get any more impressions from that, just to use up the ink that's on the stamp. It'll get progressively lighter. And then just clean that off. Okay, so I have a few images to work with there. And if you are going to be sticking it down and not wanting the edges to show up very much, it is easier, or it's more effective if you rip the page, because it is not a definite hard line, and that ripped edge tends to melt into the page a lot easier than a hard edge. I'm just going around, ripping that all the way around. That's going to go onto this book here. So I'm going to pop it onto the page there, and then we will create some journaling on this side. So I have my matte medium. Now it's very delicate, so just go very gently. And make sure there's no air bubbles left in there. And for the outside, I'm going to create a border, and I'm going to use some images or some patterns that I've cut out of magazines. So that looks nice and colourful, that one. Now you could use scrapbooking paper to do this, or, as I said, just pages from a magazine. See, I could have used, this is just like cliffs and grass, but we could have cut strips out of that. I think I'm going to just stay with this, it's nice and colourful. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stick all that down around the edges. I'll put all the rest of this away. You can use a glue stick or you could use your matte medium. I'm just going to use the glue stick for now. As I said, you could have made like bricks like this with different scrapbook papers. I've just chosen to use a texture, well, it was a picture out of the magazine, and that's created my border just there. Once you've got that down, you can also add a bit to make it your own. So what I could do is start adding to the pattern that's already there. You could outline, you can create little strokes, dots. And that was quite a heavy pattern anyway, so I'm just adding my own little touches to it. So there we go, I've put my own stamp on that pattern border. Doesn't matter what you'd used. If you have used something like this, you could have done exactly the same thing. Used your white and black pen, just outlined some of the shapes. Create some dotted areas, some circles, and some lines. Done exactly the same thing, just like that, and that would have created a nice little edge there as well. So it's up to you, just get creative with whatever you stick on. Or you might have, as I said, you might already have like a really nice pattern you don't want to touch. You can do that. You could just do plain white paper and do your own patterning on that if you want, or plain black paper, and if you have any your white gel pen will come up really nicely on the plain black paper. So that is the border. So over here we're going to do some words. So for that I am going to use the word art that I have. So I have some printed on an ivory colour or a white. I'm not sure which one I think would be best. Oh, the grunged up one. I like that one. I'm going to do that. Okay. Now you can cut a straight line or you can tear, and I think I'm gonna tear it. You could also cut them out in lines and stick them down in lines. So I'll just show you that really quickly. So I probably like that better actually. So what do you think, that or that? That, I think that. Now if you're doing a quote and it is a quote that belongs to someone, you should put their name in there also, like I have done here. That's Emily Dickinson. I've got a feeling maybe I've missed that off, possibly, but if I have, I will include that later. So I'm going to line those all up, and you can have them nice and even or spaced out straight if you want, or you can put them on angles. I like them better on angles. I just feel like you don't stress out about having to get them all lined up, and it just looks a little bit more, organic. One thing I like to do is make sure that the top and the bottom have roughly the same amount of gap. Excellent. And then I will stick that down with some matte medium. So it's good to go over the top, because then you thoroughly saturate the paper. Now, if you don't have a laserjet printer and you've only got a bubble jet or inkjet, print them up. Print your collage items up maybe a day in advance, because it gives it more time to dry. And even if you have a little bit of workable fixative, that's also really good to give it a little spray. Let it sit for a little while, like a day or so, before you use it. Otherwise, you're going to find that this ink, if you're using a bubble jet printer, will float off or smudge, which you don't want. So I actually have a laser jet now, which is great, but until before that I had to use that method. Okay, last one. And I prefer medium because it doesn't leave a shine. If you had a matte background and you've put the glossy medium over the top, it's going to leave a shine in that area, and you'll see that difference between here, where I've put down the medium, and here, the edge of the page, and that's not very attractive. So if you're using a matte medium, I just feel like it's a nicer medium to stick down your collage material with. And then if you want it all to be shiny later on, go over with a a shiny gloss medium. But you'll find it's easier to use matte mediums and matte paints in your art journal because they don't stick together as much, hardly at all actually. If you're using gloss and glossy paints, acrylic paints stick together quite easily. Even if they don't do it at the start, with the pressure of the book being closed, eventually they will start to stick, and you'll find that it's damaged the artwork. So just keep that in mind. That's not to say you have to go out and race out and buy all matte paints and matte mediums. You can, one little trick is to put a little bit of talcum powder over your page, sort of rub it in after everything is totally dry, and that can help. You can put a bit of greaseproof paper between your pages, or you can go over the top of everything when everything is finished with a matte medium. It's up to you, but I've got a lot of pages that have stuck a little bit together and pulled bits of paint off, and it's not a big worry, but it's sort of annoying. So if you want to combat that, that's what you can do. Okay, let's just fix this little bit up here. I'm not really happy with how it... I don't think it did rip. I think it was just a little bit of the stamp didn't come out quite as well. So what I might do is define that with the black. So you can do that. So I'm going to go... So that texture is really grabbing onto my pen. So you can continue to define that if you want. And you can change it up to the white as well. So I might do the outside of that in the black. And then go into the inside with the white. I think I'll leave it like that. That looks quite pretty like that. So now I've embellished the stamp. So I stamped on tissue paper, stuck the tissue paper down, and then embellished on top of that, and that's changed the whole look of that stamp once again. I have our words here, our journaling. You could have written words, you could have typed something out, stuck that down, or as I said, just written straight on there, but it is hard to write on this really textured surface, so this is what I prefer to do. And just to finish off, I might go around and just put some black around the edge here. Smudge it a little bit while it's still wet. Okay, so you can see that that black line and that little bit of smudging has given that bit of depth there. So it's sent the background into the back a little bit more and created more of a frame effect and just made it meld into the page a lot nicer. Okay, now you can also go around the edges of these words if you want. So you could there we go, and there's that page finished. Okay, for this page, I'm going to use another mandala stamp, and this one I'm going to just use 1/2 on each side of the page. This time I'm going to write a word in the center, and I'm going to write, let's get a pencil. You can't see it there, but I'm actually going to write the word love. So I'm now just thickening that up by doing a line on each side of the previous drawn lines. And then just colour that in. Now if you had a brush pen or something that you could have created this thickness from the very start, then by all means do that. I'm just trying to create these pages with minimal supplies, so that is why I'm not pulling out my brush pens for this. Okay, so I'm now also going to go back with the white pen and go around that. And then for the journaling, what I would do is some script writing right around the edge. Script writing all joined together, so no gaps, will give that a nice edge. So you can use the stream of consciousness method where you just write and you just let it come out. Whatever comes out is what you put down on the page, whether it makes much sense or not, doesn't really matter. Or if you have something really important that you wanted to say, you can pop that down and plan it out and write that as well. So I'm going to just do the stream of consciousness method. So there we have that page finished also.